The scream of Friedrich Wilhelm I. They say it can still be heard on storm-racked nights. A scream, rising over the wind, echoing across the decaying corridors of the Königliches Jagdschloss, once the favored hunting lodge of King Friedrich Wilhelm I of Prussia. It begins as a whisper, an airy rasp that trembles through the broken windows and the skeletal trees of the nearby forest. Then it grows, a strangled cry, a howl so raw it curdles the blood. Locals call it Der Königsschrei, the king's scream. Few dare go near the lodge now, not since the last disappearance. But the legend, the legend has never faded. I, the historian. It was this legend that drew Jonas Weidmann, a reclusive academic from Leipzig, to the Brandenburg countryside. A specialist in royal psychology and the intersection of madness and power, Jonas had long been obsessed with the peculiar figure of Friedrich Wilhelm I. Notorious for his violence, his obsession with order, and his peculiar love-hate relationship with his own son, Frederick the Great. Friedrich Wilhelm was often called Der Soldatenkönig, the Soldier King. His court was a place of drills, dogma, and unpredictable rage. But it was not the public image that fascinated Jonas. It was the whispers that the king had in the final years of his life descended into something other, something haunted. And it was in Jagdschloss Glienicke, the remote hunting lodge near Potsdam, that the king had retreated most frequently in his final years. There, documents claimed his outbursts worsened. Servants vanished. Diaries stopped mid-sentence. The surrounding villagers spoke of lights in the trees, of hounds that walked upright, and of a scream that could pierce steel. Jonas found such tales thrilling. He was less thrilled when he arrived and found the property far more decayed than expected. Moss-choked statues loomed in the overgrown garden, and the once stately lodge now sagged under the weight of centuries. Still, he entered, notebook in hand, determined to spend the week investigating the site. To the lodge. The interior of the lodge was darker than expected, choked with shadows that no lantern could fully banish. The air smelled of wet earth and scorched iron. Jonas wandered its halls, marveling at the artwork, most of it grotesque. Tapestries depicted hunts gone wrong. One fresco showed the king himself, spear in hand, stabbing what appeared to be a horned man. But it was the chapel that chilled Jonas the most. Hidden at the end of a narrow corridor, it had been long abandoned. The crucifix was overturned. Candles, melted to nubs, stood in a perfect circle around the altar. Strange sigils, neither Latin nor German, were etched into the floor. It was there, on the third night, that Jonas heard it. A low hiss, then a grunt, and then a scream. It came from the upper floors, though no one else was in the building. Jonas froze. Every instinct told him to flee, but his curiosity, stronger than fear, drew him upward. 3. The room. He found the room locked. Its door, blackened as if scorched, bore a brass nameplate, FWI. Jonas's fingers trembled as he reached into his satchel and retrieved the antique key he'd been given by the caretaker. It fit perfectly. Inside, the air was thick, heavy with mildew and some darker scent, something bitter and ancient. The room was preserved, almost unnaturally so. A massive desk sat under a curtain-draped window. Portraits lined the walls, each of the king, each subtly different. In one, his mouth was open wide, as if frozen mid-scream. On the desk lay a journal. Jonas opened it, and instantly the air shifted. The journal was written in a furious hand. Lines crossed, rewritten, overwritten again. The entries began sensibly enough. Reflections on military reforms, notes about his son's insolence. But soon, they descended into chaos. The forest watches me. The antlered man visits my dreams. The dogs speak in tongues. They whisper of the throne of bone. They said the scream is the price. That night, Jonas dreamed. 4. The dream. He was in the forest. Trees bent inward, their trunks groaning like tortured men. A figure stood ahead, a man tall, wrapped in furs, his eyes black pits. He wore a crown, but not of gold. It was made of bone and antler. Blood dripped from his sleeves. "You opened the door," the figure rasped. "I'm just a historian," Jonas replied. "You're a key." Then came the scream. It tore the world in half. The descent. Jonas awoke at dawn, bleeding from the ears. His journal was missing. In its place lay a single sheet of paper, freshly inked. "You'll carry it now. The scream cannot die. It must pass on." From that moment, Jonas began to hear whispers during meals, in the bathroom mirror, in the rustling of papers. Always a low voice repeating, "The scream must live. The scream must pass." His behavior grew erratic. He stopped sleeping. He dug a trench behind the lodge, murmuring to himself as he lined it with bones of forest animals. The locals reported strange lights again, blue flares dancing above the lodge. And then, one night, Jonas vanished. Only his notebook was found, open on the altar in the ruined chapel. Its final entry. It was not a scream of pain, but of power. "The scream is not an end. It is a crown. I wear it now." 6. The curse. Since then, others have tried to stay the Jagdschloss. None last more than a few nights. The scream returns like clockwork, always around the 3rd or 4th night. Some say it's the scream of the king, locked in eternal torment. Others say it is a call, a ritualistic cry for a new vessel. And every few decades, someone answers. Some say the scream was born from the king's hatred, of weakness, of disorder, of softness. Others say he made a pact, an old Prussian ritual, half forgotten, traded for invincibility. But power, true power, always has a price. So when the wind howls and the forests of Brandenburg tremble, remember this. The scream of Friedrich Wilhelm I still echoes, not in death but in legacy. And if you hear it, cover your ears, lest you wear the crown next.